going to be doing today's chumash in a moment. Just making myself a coffee. Dark, black, Turkish coffee. That's what we want. Why did I say we? I don't know. You know, there are opinions that say that one should say the blessing benefiting from the smell of coffee. But since we don't necessarily hold like that opinion, what some very meticulous people do is take out something like cloves, for example, which I don't think I have over here, and that you can most definitely say the blessing on, and then they will fulfill the potential obligation of saying the blessing on coffee by doing it first on cloves. I'm getting a phone call which I'll pick up, so you won't hear anything for the next minute or two. That was another... Hello! Okay. Here we are. I have all my camera equipment in Florida. Alright, today's chumash. That smells good. Hopefully it will do the trick. I don't remember the last time. Actually, I do remember the last time I had some coffee. It was like 2 days ago. But before then, I don't remember the last time I had coffee. I try to not use it daily. This way, when I actually do use it, it actually really works. Okay. Let's send the link to Tzvi, as I always do. Okay. Are we ready? Are we ready to begin? Are we ready to begin? why, but I feel like I do things the hard way. Truth is, that's not true. I don't think I do things the hard way. I feel like here and there, certain things like this. Okay. I'm so tired, if you can't tell. I'm going to turn on this lamp right here, because I think it will look nice. It's a nice warm look. Yancheni v'maglei tzedek l'man shemo. Okay. Second reading of the Torah portion of TLPS, which can be found in Genesis chapter 26, verse 7. Vayeshev Yitzchak b'Gerar. So Yitzchak settled in Gerar. That was actually verse 6. Now we go to verse 7. Vayishalu anshe hamakim le'ishtei v'yemer achesihi ki yarei le'mer ishti pen yargoni anshe hamakim al Rivka kitevas marehi. When the local people asked about his wife, he said, just as Avraham, my father, had responded regarding Sarah, she is my sister, he purposely misled them. He said, just as Avraham had responded regarding Sarah, she is my sister. He purposely misled them because he was afraid to say to them, she is my wife, lest, he thought to himself, the local people kill me on account of Rivka because she is of good facial complexion. She was very beautiful. Says Rashi, le'ishtai al ishtai, about his wife, k'may imrili achihu. Ches 8. Vayehi ki archu la'isha mayamim vayashki v'avimelech melech plishtim v'ad achalayin vayar v'hina Yitzchak metzachik is Rivka ishtai. So she didn't get abducted. She wasn't taken like, oh, okay, a single girl who's beautiful, that's it, let's take her to the king. No, Avimelech, the king, waited around. Perhaps he had learned his lesson since last time, right? Ches. But unlike what Pare had done to Sarah, the king did not abduct Rivka at once. Therefore, after Yitzchak had already been there a long time, he decided that he no longer needed to be so circumspect. Avimelech, the king of the Philistine, looked out the window of his palace and caught sight of Yitzchak gladdening his wife Rivka in the course of marital intimacy. Now it's explained that, of course, the way that Yitzchak and Rivka conducted themselves in their marital intimacy was with the most modesty, as befits such a holy couple like our forefather and foremother Isaac and Rebekah. But what Avimelech saw was that the way they lived together in such privacy and such modesty is not the way a brother and sister would be living together. This means that there must be something more going on. They must, behind these well-covered windows, for example, there must be marital intimacy going on because, of course, they are married. So this is what he figures out. After some time, as we said, Ki Archu, says Rashi, Amar, Me'ata Einli Lidoik, Me'achash Le'anasu Adachshav, V'lein Izar Li'is Nishmar. V'yashkev Avimelech V'gemar Sharao Mishamish Mitase. Rashi says simply he saw him in the act of marital intimacy. But like I said, I don't remember where I learned that. But that is the understanding. Yud. Perhaps it's a understanding. Actually, we're not up to Yod, we're up to Tes. Vayikra Avimelech liYitzchak v'yemar achina ishtcha hi ve'ech amarta achesi hi v'yemer elav Yitzchak ki amarti pen amos aleha. Avimelech summoned Isaac and said, so she really is your wife. How could you have said she is my sister? Yitzchak answered him, for I thought lest I die because of her. Next pasuk, Yud. Vayemer Avimelech mazeh sasisa lanu kimat shacha bachad ha'ames ishtecha vehevesa aleinu asham. So Avimelech then said, what have you done to us? I, the most preeminent one among the people, could easily have had relations with your wife, and you would have brought guilt upon us. I would have believed you. When you said she's my sister, I would have went ahead and slept with her. And that would have been obviously a huge problem. Achada'am, one of the people. What does that mean, one of the people? The greatest of them. Hamiyuchad ba'am ze'amelech, in other words, the king, me. Ve'veis aleinu asham, im shachav kvar, hiveis aleinu asham. If I would have slept with her already, you would have brought guilt upon us. Vayitzav Avimelech es kol ha'am leimer hanegea bo'ish hazeh ve'ishtei mais yumas. So Avimelech issued an order of warning to all the people, like this: whosoever lays a finger on this man or his wife shall surely be put to death. Va Yizra Yitzchak ba'aretz hahi vayimtza b'shana hahi mea sa'arim v'yivarcheho. Oh, I actually said that word wrong. It's sa'ar. It's she'arim. I was thinking sa'ar like a measurement, but it's she'arim. And if you see, I don't know how these live streams save. I know they save on Facebook and YouTube, not on Twitch for some reason. I haven't figured that out yet. But maybe I should live stream myself trying to figure it out, see if that works. But the other day, Pesach and I in the morning, I think I titled it Torah Ar with Pesach, we started learning a mimer. Actually, it wasn't from Torah Ar. One of the days we started learning Torah Ar, then another day we learned, Erev Shabbos, Friday, we learned from Torah Ar, and then on Sunday, we started together with Parshas Toldes, a mimer of the Rebbe from Parshas Toldes. I forget the year of the mimer, but with this Divrei Maschil of this pasuk, Vayizar Yitzchak, and the Rebbe gave it out in Tafshin Nun Aleph. Now, when we read this, I totally thought that it was Sa'irim, like a measure. You'll see in a second why, but Pesach was right, Mea Sha'arim. That is how to pronounce this word. So Pesach, if you're here, you are correct. So, and that is the inspiration for the place in Israel called Mea Sha'arim. Isaac sowed grain in that region and in that year, being that it was not a particularly fertile area, and that it was also a year of famine. He estimated that it would be a small yield, but he nonetheless reaped 100-fold more than he expected, for God had blessed him. Furthermore, when they calculated the yield for the purpose of taking Meiser, tithes, they had found that it miraculously increased 100-fold again in the merit of his intention to tithe it, for God had blessed him. You see something very powerful over here, that just your intention to give a lot of tzedakah allows for the vessel that you make to make money to be filled with money in order for you to be able to give that amount of tzedakah, and plus, because Hashem always rewards, and so plus more. That being said, I know that, you could reach out. I know of a few places, for example, one of them, the Wilkes-Barre Yeshiva, who are fundraising right now, and it's definitely some good places to put some of your money. Okay, so Rashi. Ba'aretz hahi, af al pi she'ena chashuva k'eretz Yisrael atzma k'eretz shiva goyim. B'shana hahi af al pi she'ena k'takana she'isa shnas ravin. Ba'aretz hahi b'shana hahi shneim lama loim asher aretz kasha b'ashana kasha. Meaning he really didn't have any physical reason to expect the yield to be great. Mea sha'arim, why is it called that? Shamaduha, sheimduha kamara uya la'asais. He measured how much would make sense for the yield to be. Vasasal achas sheimduha mea. And it actually brought him a profit 100-fold. Rabbi Sinu Amru, Aymed Zela Meisters Haya. That the reason he measured it was to make the calculation how much Meiser he needs to give. I think the coffee grounds have dropped enough that I can drink this. Chaim v'levracha. Yesterday, actually, this is probably on the live stream from yesterday's Chassidus after Pesach and I had finished, and then someone else had just started giving a class, right? So at first I didn't move the camera, but you were able to hear his class. He's I think his last name was Kirsch, Rabbi Kirsch, Dr. Kirsch. I think he's a chemist. But clearly, whatever he is, he's an intelligent person, and he was well spoken, very eloquent, and he understood the Hasidic concepts that he was giving over in his class. He apparently also has a podcast very, very well. So I felt like it was, like I should leave the camera rolling and record what he has to say. And I liked one of the things that he said was not to do with one of the things that he said was that the class should be in the merit of Rabbi Kogan, Rabbi Tzvi Kogan, may God avenge his blood, who was just brutally murdered in this what I'll call an anti-Semitic terror attack, apparently by Iranian intelligence, that, this man and his wife dedicated their life to being there for other people, to spreading the light and goodness of Judaism to Abu Dhabi, which is not the most comfortable place for a Jewish person to live, especially an Orthodox Jewish person. And that is no matter, because he wasn't looking for comfort. They were looking to bring goodness and be available for whoever might pass through their doors. And he was killed. So in this class, he said, ultimately, like, we'd like to say that it should be Iloi Nishmasai, right, for the elevation of his soul, but it doesn't really get much loftier. How does a soul that was taken out of its body, that was forced out of its body when it had given its whole life to Hashem, and now even in a complete, both spiritual and physical manner, its life is now back, wrapped up in the bond of life with Hashem. What kind of elevation can we hope for it? Like, how does it get greater than that? So what he said was cute, and I thought very legit. He said, so it's for Ilay our neshama, like our neshama should be elevated from this that we're learning in his merit. L'chaim. That's correct. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה b'dorei. L'chaim v'levracha. Okay. Oh, that was today's portion. Well, that's great. What I could do now is this Reb Leivik Levi Tzikarnik, because that's amazing if that's true. But I don't know. I feel like that might just be an imposter. Either way, welcome, Reb Leivik. Thanks for being here on L'chaim v'levracha. Okay, what we're going to do now is we are going to call Benny, and we're going to learn Rambam, if he didn't already learn it. We're going to learn it together with Benny. If he did already learn it, then, my wife's about to come home, then we're going to learn it together. Leivik Halevi... Leivik Halevi. Wow. L'chaim v'levracha. Welcome home, Rebbitzin Weiss. Wow, Levi. Levi, we gotta learn. We gotta fabring, and we should be nice. And maybe after we learn in fabring off camera, we should do it on camera as well. Okay, I'm gonna call Benny. Where's my phone to do that? Oh. I'll call Benny from here. And I hope it doesn't die. Yeah, unless it's already dead. Well, it's at 54%. Okay. Oh, amazing. That would be wonderful.
Yes.
Kenyan, Carbonates, Kara. We just started Nizikin. Oh, is that the one safer a Rambam I don't have? That's fun. Okay. Guess we'll do it from the phone as well. Ooh. Oh no. Yeah, it's also Tara. It's funny that I thought that was Levi Tzikarnik. Like, it's definitely not Levi Tzikarnik. Okay. No, Levi. What's my? Can I call you, Levi? I'm gonna call you. Actually, I really need to call Benny because he might be expecting me to call him already. But let's see if he picks up. His phone is so... Okay, in the meantime, if Levi's still here, oh, not only is Levi still here, I think there's another 2 people here. Wow. So, in the meantime, while I'm trying to get this phone working so I could call Benny so we could learn Rambam together with Benny, I will share with you an interesting story that I heard with a few more details. I feel like I've heard the story before, but then I read it with more details. And I like repeating those before I forget them. So basically, the story goes that there were... Actually, I read this, and it opens up with explaining how before the colleges came around, there were academies. Now, what's really the difference? I don't know, but that's what it was called. And point is, though, this was there were 3 major Polish academies that each one was funded by another prince, which I guess is like a landowner, but I don't know. I'm not so I don't really know how these things work, unless they were I guess they were considered royalty, but their names were I forget which academy and which location they were each associated with. But one was Prince Sheksinki, one was Prince Dekrit, and I forgot the other one. Shucks. Okay, you see, just me trying to repeat stories with details so that I don't forget them also makes me forget them. But this phone's still not working.
You know your tablet is?
Nah, I can't call Benny from the tablet. I need to call him from the phone.
We could use Rambam.
Could use Rambam on the tablet. I could use it on the phone too. Thanks.
Sure.
I think my WhatsApp's just so slow. Oh, I see a missed video call from him. From right now? Okay, so maybe it started working. Point it. So in this mice, the Alter Rebbe. Oh, so one of these princes had a sundial in his yard, and between the hours of 2 and 5 p.m. it wasn't working. So he, of course, brings anyone who might be even remotely qualified to people who are greatly qualified and people who are maybe in some way qualified to figure out this issue. And nobody was able to figure it out and help him, of course. And he hears about the Alter Rebbe, who, in this version of the story that I read, it didn't mention his age, but for some reason I feel like the first time that I heard the story, the Alter Rebbe was a young boy. So I guess based on the way that the story was written here, I would assume like maybe he was in his teens, maybe 17. And the Alter Rebbe indeed figures it out for him. Oh, Benny's calling. Is it working? Hello. Before you curse me out for taking so long for me to call you, I'm just letting you know we're on a live stream. Okay? Here, I'll flip it around so you can see. I'll flip my camera. Okay. Here we are.
You can't see me, I'm good.
No, so we won't see you. I'm not going to set up the phone for people to see your face.
They can hear me?
But yeah, they could hear you, and we're all going to learn Rambam together.
Yay! Okay, let's do this.
So you didn't start today yet.
Did not start today, but I only have like 45 minutes. So.
Same. I probably have less than 45 minutes because my phone's at 49%, and this phone goes down 1% every like 10 seconds. So, yeah, I'm joking. That was a slight exaggeration, but yeah, let's do it quickly. Let's run through it.
Chapter 6. What is meant by the term muad? An animal regarding which testimony was given on 3 different
One second. If anybody wants to follow, I hope that you're able to hear through the one phone into the microphone of the video. But if anybody wants to follow online, you can go on Chabad.org daily study, 3 chapters a day. We're starting from the beginning. Or if you want to find it online through a different book, or if you want to pull out the book from your shelf in your house, if you have it, we're in the book called Nizikin, the book of damages, and specifically the first set of laws in that book called Nizkei Mamayin, like financial damages. And we are starting chapter 6 right now. Okay, again, yeah.
What is meant by the term muad? An animal regarding which testimony was given on 3 different days. If, however, an animal gored other animals on one day, or it bit, lay upon, kicked, or butted other animals many, even 100 times in one day, it should not be considered to be muad. If 3 pairs of witnesses gave testimony concerning an animal on one day, there's an unresolved doubt whether it's classified as muad or not. Halacha base.
So, Bekitzer, a muad animal is only if testimony was given about it doing this specifically damaging behavior on 3 different days.
Halacha beis, ein ha'ada Allah b'fnei ha'ba'alim, b'fnei beis din, shenamar v'huad b'v'Allah v'ein ha'ada Allah b'beis din. The warning administered to an animal for an animal must be administered in the owner's presence, as it says in the pasuk, and the owners shall be warned. This warning must be administered in a beis din.
Okay, yeah, let's switch off every two, okay? So I'll do Gimel and Dalet. When an ox belonging to a deaf-mute, mentally incompetent individual, a minor, or a person who is overseas gores, the owner is not liable. The court should, however, appoint a guardian for the ox and administer the warning to the guardian. The following rules apply when this ox causes dalit. The following rules apply when this ox causes damage after the warning was administered to the guardian. If the ox is still classified as a tum, an ordinary animal, half the damages must be paid from the body of the ox. If a warning was administered on 3 different days, and afterwards the ox causes damage, the guardian must pay for the damage from the choicest properties he owns. When the orphans attain majority, they must enter into litigation with the guardian and repay him, because ultimately it's not his animal. He's just looking after it on their behalf.
Halacha hey, shvarim shemesachatin bahen ulamedin aisan lidach zeh inam murad zeh. When oxen are used for sport and they are trained to gore each other, they are not considered to be muadim to gore each other. Afilu hamisa is adam inen chayav misa. Shnamer chiyidach like shiyagichuhu. Moreover, even if they kill a human, they should not be executed, because it says in the pasuk, when an ox gores, implying that it does so on its own initiative, not that it was prompted to gore.
Right, so these oxen were like trained for this, so they're not going to be considered responsible for their behavior. Well, the owner is not responsible.
Halacha vav.
I mean, that's it's a little interesting, the halacha, but yeah, okay.
Shai shehuad b'nimtar oy nitar b'matana chazal v'savusa shenishtanis mishana b'dinoi aval im hishilai emisari l'shever harehu b'chaskase v'chem shai shehuad b'fnei apoit leipsin in this pakeach v'acherish nishtapa hasheta v'hidil atote namapisha batal apoit rapsin harehed muadin v'chaskasen shari b'shus ba'alim hein. When an ox was sold or given away as a present after its owners had been warned, its status reverts back to that of a tam. With the change of ownership, its status changes. If, however, an ox was borrowed or entrusted to a watchman, its status remains unchanged. Similarly, if a warning regarding an ox was given to a guardian, and then the owner who was deaf-mute regained his faculties, or the owner who was mentally incompetent regains competence, or the owner who was a minor attains majority, the status of the ox remains unchanged, for it remains in the domain of the same owner.
So, similarly, if a warning regarding an ox was given to a guardian, and the owner who was a deaf-mute regained his faculties. Oh, interesting. Right. Okay, Zion. An animal that was classified as muad, and then it changes its conduct. Its status changes. Oh, midavar shehuad aloi chazra l'tamusa. Right, its status changes. It goes back to being a tam. What is implied? If an ox was classified as muad with regard to goring, and it stopped goring, it's considered to be a tum with regard to goring, even though it still butts other animals. When is it considered to have stopped goring? At what point? When children can play with it and it doesn't gore them. Similarly, I mean, which parents are testing that out and letting their kids play with an ox who's known for goring? I don't know, but that's the standard. Similarly, with regard to other tendencies regarding which warnings were given, the status of the animal remains unchanged until children play with it and it doesn't do what it was wont to do previously. Ches. When an ox has been classified as muad with regard to other oxen, it's not considered muad with regard to other types of animals. An ox that was classified as muad with regard to humans is not considered to be muad with regard to animals. If it has been classified as muad with regard to young animals, it's not considered to be muad with regard to older animals, who said not necessarily it wants to pick on someone its own size. Therefore, if it caused damage of the type regarding which the warning was given, the owner is liable for the full amount of damages, because it was wont to do that. If it caused damages of another type regarding which a warning was not given, the owners must pay only half the damages. If it has been classified as muad with regard to Shabbos, it's not considered to be muad with regard to weekdays. If it causes damage on Shabbos, the owner will be liable for the full amount of damage. During the week, the owners must pay only half of the damages. When is the warning rescinded? Like when can we take away the warning? When children will play with it on the day concerning which the warning was given, and it doesn't harm them in the way that it's known to cause harm.
An ox gored another ox on one day, a donkey on the following day, and a camel on the day afterwards is classified as muad for all these types of animals. A warning should be administered to an owner in the following situation. His ox saw another ox on one day and gored it. On the next day it saw another ox but did not gore it. On the third day it saw another ox and gored it. On the fourth day it saw another ox but did not gore it. On the fifth day it saw another ox and gored it. On the sixth day it was another ox but did not gore it. In these circumstances, the ox becomes classified as muad to gore oxen on alternative days. Every other day he gores them. Similar laws apply in all analogous situations.
Yod.
Similarly, a warning should also be administered to an owner in the following situation. His ox saw another ox on one day and gored it. On the next day it saw a donkey but did not gore it. On the third day it saw a horse and gored it. The fourth day it saw a camel but did not gore it. On the fifth day it saw a mule and gored it. And on the sixth day it saw a wild donkey but did not gore it. In these circumstances, the ox becomes classified as muad to gore on these three types of animals on alternate days. It does not gore. If it gores one of the types of animals that it had gored on alternate days on a day which is muad, the owner must pay the full damages as required for an ox that is muad.
Yod Aleph. When an ox nagach b'chamisha asher l'chedesh is that. So it gored an animal on the 15th of one month, uv'shisha asher l'chedesh sheni, and then the 16th of another, uv'shiva asher l'chedesh shlishi, and then on the 17th of yet another. Einei muad ad she'ishalish b'dilug. It's not classified as muad until it adds a day, a third time, in the fourth month. Wait. 15th, then 16th, then 17th. So it has to add another, meaning 18th in the fourth month? Why are we calling it the third time? Shama kol shefer v'nagach. I don't know. Let's see the footnote here. A parallel to this law is found as regards to fixing the pattern of the onset of menstruation. Okay, I've been seeing that pattern a lot, but I don't understand this specific idea of a third time. Okay, anyway, moving on. If an ox hears a shofar blast and gores on 3 successive occasions, it's considered muad to gore after hearing shofar blasts, and similar laws apply in other analogous situations. Yod Beis, there is a suffix, an unresolved doubt, in the following situations. An ox gored 3 oxen on 3 successive days. On the 4th day it gored a donkey, on the 5th day a camel. Or at first it gored a donkey, then a camel, and then it gored 3 oxen one after another on 3 successive days. So there's a doubt if it's classified as muad only for oxen or for all 3 types of animals. Similarly, if an ox gores on 3 successive Shabboses, and then on the Sunday and Monday following the 3rd Shabbos, or it gored on Thursday, Friday, and then 3 successive Shabbases. Again, we just have a doubt whether it's classified as muad only for Shabbos or for a block of 3 days, 2 of which would be ordinary weekdays. Take it away, Benny. Last halacha. Again, just because we have many people joining us, we are doing the laws of financial damages in the Book of Damages of the Rambam's Magnum Opus Mishnah Torah, the 14-volume set. And of those 14 books, we're in the Book of Damages. We're about to finish chapter 6 of the laws of financial damage. Halacha 13.
With regard to these unresolved questions and the like, the owner of the ox that caused the damage is required to pay for only half the damages. The person whose property was damaged seizes property belonging to the other person, equivalent to the full amount of the damages. It is not expropriated from him.
Yeah. Just give me a second. Oh, Benny, I'm going to send you something. Oh, you do, ma, ma. Oh, yo, oh, hello, David. Or is your first name Nitwa? I don't know. Hi, but you're welcome here. Benny, sorry, my phone's just being really slow.
I know, what are you sending me though?
I'm trying to send you the link so you can, because you don't see my face. So,
It's okay.
I know that you want to see. Apparently I passed that health exam with flying colors from a...
Oh. Right. You just know the results then?
I got the results yesterday. Hey, David. Or 2 days ago or 3 days ago. I got a notification. I didn't even look at them. But now Morty messaged me that they were really good.
Oh, that's amazing.
Okay, Benny, here. Just click it, and then you don't have to put the sound on. This way you keep the sound on our phone call. All right, David, what we're doing is the laws of financial damages in the Rambam, Maimonides, Magnum Opus, Mishnah Torah. It's a 14-volume set, and we are in the Book of Damages.
Doesn't help me though.
Why not? You can pull it up on a separate page.
Okay, finally done.
Now these laws they might sound archaic because when was the last time you had trouble with someone's ox damaging your field or goring your ox, But, oh, it's still called Williamsburg on Twitch. I never changed it. That's funny. You could. I'm not still in Williamsburg. All right, Benjamin, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's go further. Shall I read? Can I start?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, chapter 7. Kol hashvi'in chavivin. The following rules apply when an ox breaks loose and causes damage after its owner had tied it down with a rope and locked it in a corral, if I'm pronouncing that word correctly, in an acceptable manner. In other words, like corral, is that how you pronounce it? Whatever. The point is, he was locking this ox down because he knows this ox is going to make some trouble, and he wants to prevent that from happening.
So what happens if it's a tum? In other words, if he didn't expect that we don't have like a chazaka that this ox is for sure going to cause this type of damage, then he is required to pay only half of the damage. If it is a muad, in other words, we have every reason to expect and was already warned, then he is not liable at all. Why would that be? Very interesting, because I guess he took every safeguard that he can take by locking it up. As implied by Exodus, if the owners were warned and they did not guard him, one can infer that if they did guard him, then they're not liable at all. Wow, very interesting. And in the above instance, the ox was guarded. Similarly, if an ox caused damage through an activity for which he is known to go ahead and cause damage at the outset, for example, it ate a type of food that it usually eats, or it broke objects by stepping on them, the owner is not liable in the above instance where he guarded it, because he did his best to make sure that that wouldn't happen. Love you, thank you. Bays. Second law, if the ox has been classified as muad, with regard, so muad means that it's like we already know and it was already warned that this is its nature, it's going to cause this kind of damage. And it was classified as a muad with regard to its right horn, because it would use that horn to gore, to make damage, whatever, but it's not muad with regard to its left horn. And it got loose after it was guarded in an acceptable manner. The owner is required to pay half the damages. This applies regardless of whether it used its right horn or its left horn. Interesting. Gimel, Benny.
The following rules apply when an animal injures a human being, whether intentionally or unintentionally. If the animal is a tam, half the damages must be paid from the body of the animal. If it's muad, the owner must pay the entire amount of the damages. He is, however, not liable for compensation for unemployment, embarrassment, pain, and medical expenses. The Torah required redress for these matters only when one person injured a colleague. When by contrast, it's an animal which caused the injury, it's as if the animal damaged a person's property and the owner is liable as chayiv for only half of the damages. For this reason, if a person's ox causes another individual embarrassment, he is not chayiv himself.
He's not chayiv. In other words, to pay for someone else's embarrassment or loss of employment and all those things is only when you're the one who caused damage to another person. Here it's your property that caused damage.
If, however, he causes the embarrassment himself, he's chayiv, as will be explained. If a person's ox injures his father or mother or sets fire to a person's grain heap on the Shabbos, the owner is chayiv, although if the person performed these same actions himself, he would not be chayiv.
Why? Because a person who injures his father or mother himself is not going to be chayiv to pay, because he's going to be chayiv to die, because that is a sin of capital punishment, injuring one's father or mother, causing a wound, and lighting fire on Shabbos to someone else's field. You don't have to pay for the damages. Why? Because you pay with your life, God forbid, because you can't light a fire on Shabbos. And we have a rule in Torah that you're never both required to pay a fine and die. Daled. 4. The following rules apply when a person brings his ox into a courtyard belonging to another person without his permission. If the uninvited ox, that would be a great social media name, or streaming name, uninvited ox, was gored by an ox belonging to the owner or bitten by the owner's dog, the owner is not liable. If the uninvited ox gored an ox belonging to the owner of the courtyard, the owner of the uninvited ox is liable. If his ox is tum, its owner must pay half the damages. If it's muad, he must pay the entire damages, as if it had gored the other ox in the public domain. Why is he not liable if his ox gored an ox belonging to the owner, or bitten by the owner's dog? Oh, the owner is not liable. In other words, if the owner of the field's ox gores the uninvited ox, of course the owner of the field is not liable. Right, but if the uninvited ox causes damage, then if it's tum, half, and if it's muad, the full thing. Right. Hey, in the above situation, the following rules apply. if the uninvited ox falls into a cistern in this courtyard and spoils its water. If it spoiled the water immediately upon falling within, the owner of the ox is liable for the loss caused. You okay?
Yeah.
Caused by the ruining of the water. If the water was not spoiled until afterwards, the owner is not liable. The reason is that the ox is considered to be an obstruction in the cistern, and the water is considered to be a utensil. And one is never liable for damage to utensils caused by an obstruction. If the owner of the ox received permission to bring in his ox, the owner of the ox is not liable for any damage the ox caused. If the owner of the courtyard accepted responsibility for the ox, he is liable for the damages it suffers from falling into the cistern. You see a lot of this kind of stuff in liability waivers today when going into like amusement parks or trampoline places, stuff like that, where like you're coming in to have a good time, but like we don't want to take responsibility for anything that happens. And still, there is some measure of responsibility that each party has. If you go somewhere and cause damage, God forbid, or if a person gets damaged in one of those locations. Vav, the following rules also apply when a person brings his ox into a courtyard belonging to another person without permission. If the uninvited ox injures the owner of the courtyard suffers injury because of the ox, or the ox digs pits or trenches or burrows in the courtyard. In other words, I guess he doesn't want that going on in his courtyard. He's not interested in that. It's damaging to him. The owner of the ox is liable for the damage to the courtyard or to the owner. If another person is injured because of these pits, the owner of the courtyard is liable because it's his responsibility to fill them up, right? So if a crazy person goes and breaks some stuff in a mall, I don't know, in a shopping center, then he obviously needs to pay for the damages to the shopping center. But whoever's responsible for the shopping center needs to fix that before someone else gets hurt by it.
Give me 1 second.
You're up to halacha 7. Every 7 is precious. We are the 7th generation. We are the generation of the redemption. The final generation of exile. First of Mashiach.
If the owner of the courtyard damaged the ox, if he caused the damage unknowingly, he is not chayiv. You can tell the owner of the ox, why did you bring your ox in without your permission? I was not aware of it until I damaged it unknowingly. If he caused the damage knowingly, he is chayiv for the full extent of the damage. He has the right to take the intruding animal out of his property. He does not have the right to damage it. Care to elaborate before I continue?
Nope. Go.
No. Ches. We evaluate the amount of damages caused. What is implied if either a person or his ox broke a keli belonging to a colleague. We do not tell the person who caused the damage, take the broken utensil and pay its worth to its owner. Instead, we evaluate the loss caused to the utensil. This amount is paid to the person who caused the damage. Damage was caused by his ox, and the ox was muad. He is chayiv for the full amount of damages. If it is tam, he is chayiv for half the damages. This is implied by the pasuk, "Vehem v'hamei siyoloi," and the carcass will be his. It belongs to the one whose property was damaged. If the carcass loses value, the person whose property was damaged suffers the loss. If its value rises, the increase is divided between the person who caused the damage and the person whose property was damaged.
Very interesting. What does that mean? We're going to elaborate now. What is implied? When an ox that's worth 200 zuz is gored and dies, its carcass was worth 100 zuz at the time of its death. But at the time of the trial, it decreased in value and was worth only 80. In such an instance, the person whose ox caused the damage is required to pay only 100 zuz if the ox was muad. If it was tam, the owner is required to pay only 50 zuz from the body of the ox. In other words, full payment means only half of what it's now worth in this case. Very interesting. If the value of the carcass increased and it's worth 120 zuz at the time of the trial, now I guess, animal hide went up in price. The one who caused the damage must pay 90. He's actually now liable to pay less. Meaning his actual liability doesn't change. He still needs to be making either a half payment if the ox wasn't prone to doing that, or a full payment if it was. But the number amount that he's going to be liable to pay is going to be less. If the ox was muad, right, it's going to be 90, and 45 from the body of the ox if it was tum. This is implied by Exodus 21:35, and they shall also divide the dead ox. In other words, they shall divide the profit from the dead ox. Yud Aleph.
The amount that the person whose ox caused damage must pay is subject to... What's that? The amount that the person whose ox caused the damage must pay is subject to change in some, but not in all circumstances. To illustrate, an ox that was worth 200 zuz gored another ox worth 200 zuz, causing it to depreciate 50 zuz. At the time of the trial, its value increased and it was worth 400 zuz. However, it had not been gored, it would have been worth 800 zuz. Whether its value increased because it was fattened or because of market fluctuations, the damages are evaluated according to the loss at the time the damage took place. The ox became weak because of the injury it received, and the damages amount to 100 zuz at the time of the trial. The damages are evaluated according to the loss at the time of the trial.
I spaced out. I'm sorry.
Don't worry, I'm used to it.
No, I'll read it again. The amount that the person who's caused the damage must pay is subject to change in some, but not all circumstances. To illustrate, an ox that was worth 200 zuz gored another ox worth 200 zuz, causing it to depreciate 50 zuz. I think my brain heard numbers and it was like, done. I don't want to do this now, even after a coffee. At the time of the trial, its value increased and it was worth 400 zuz. If, however, it would not have been gored, it would have been worth 800 zuz, right, if it was alive. Whether its value increased because it was fat or because of market fluctuations, the damages are evaluated according to the loss at the time that the damage took place. If the ox became weak because of the injury it received, and the damages mounted to 100 zuz at the time of the trial, the damages are evaluated according to the loss at the time of the trial. All right, you bays.
You come on.
What?
You come on.
I just read Yud Aleph.
But then you're okay, fine. You're right. The following rules apply if the value of the ox that caused the damage increased at the time of the trial.
Oh.
If its value increased because the owner fattened it, only its value at the time it caused the damage is considered to be on lien for payment. Its value increased because of market fluctuations. Half the damages must be collected from its value at the time of the trial. 13. It is the responsibility of the person who caused the damage to make the effort to bring the carcass of the ox that was damaged to the person whose ox was damaged. It's the responsibility of the person who caused the damage to make the effort to bring the carcass of the ox that was damaged to the owner of the damaged ox. Okay, that was implied.
Hang on, can you hang on just a second? If its value increased because the owner fattened it, only its value at the time it caused damage.
You know, I always pause to make sure you can say something. I don't like being interrupted in the middle of the thing.
I'm sorry. So do you want to finish and then?
Finish, yes.
Sure.
What is implied? An ox fell into a cistern and died. The owner of the cistern must raise the carcass of the ox from the cistern and give it to its owner. Then we evaluate the extent of the loss. This is derived by the pasuk, and he shall give monetary recompense to the owners, and the carcass will be the owners. This teaches that he is obligated to return the carcass and the decrease in value of the ox from the time when it was alive to its owner. The ox that caused the damage was a tam. This owner is required to pay only half the damages as explained above and take it away.
I'm just catching up.
Go for it.
Wait, did you started the next paragraph already?
No.
Okay, so we're starting that now, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll just, if you could, remind me to finish the last 3 halachis of Parak Zion. I'll just start Parak 8, because there's people here live joining us, and I don't want to take away your time either. Okay. When an ox belonging to a yid gores an ox that was consecrated, meaning that was supposed to be given to the Beis HaMikdash. Or an ox that was consecrated gores an ox belonging to a yid. The owner of the goring ox is not liable, as implied by Exodus 21:35, if one person's ox injures an ox belonging to a colleague. Meaning either which way it goes, the point is the consecrated ox isn't belonging to a person. It's not belonging to a colleague. It's belonging to Hashem. So it's an exception to this rule. All consecrated entities for which one is held liable for using them for one's own purposes are not going to be bound by the laws of damages. It's a good general principle. Animals that were disqualified are bound by the laws of damages because they are not going to be donated to Hashem. This applies regardless of whether it is they who caused the damage or they who are damaged, for they have been redeemed and can be considered ordinary property. In other words, they're no longer consecrated, so now they're going to be bound by this rule. Again, base. When an animal consecrated for a peace offering, so now this is a specific animal that's going to be brought, so we hope at least, as a peace offering to Hashem. So if that animal now causes damage to another animal or a person's field, the damages can be collected from its meat after it's offered. The person whose property was damaged does not, however, collect his due from the portions burned on the altar, because the prohibition against using consecrated property for one's own purposes applies to the portions of sacrifices of lesser sanctity burned on the altar. And a peace offering is considered a sacrifice of lesser sanctity, but still the person cannot collect his due from it, as we've explained in the laws of Me'ilah. Similarly, if an animal consecrated for a Thanksgiving offering, that's not an offering that was brought on Thanksgiving, but it's an offering brought for Thanksgiving, which we always want to be giving thanks to Hashem. And if that causes damage, the damages may be collected from its meat. They may not, however, be collected from the bread that accompanies it, for the bread is not considered to be part of the meat. Gimel.
How can the person whose property was damaged collect his due? He and his company should eat in a holy manner a portion of the meat equivalent to the half of the damages he suffered. What is meant by the statement that a person whose property was damaged does not, however, collect his due from the portions burned on the Mizbeah? That if half the damages he suffered was equivalent to a dinar, and the meat and the portions to be offered on the Mizbeah together were worth 2 dinarim, but the meat without the portions to be offered was worth only a dinar and a half, the person whose property was damaged receives only half the meat, and not 2/3 of the meat. Dalet. Similarly, an ox that is ownerless and causes damage is also not held responsible for damage it causes. This is also derived from the phrase, an ox belonging to a colleague, implying that the ox must be defined as a property of an owner. What is implied? When an ox that is ownerless gores another ox, and before the person whose property was damaged takes possession of the goring ox, another person does so, that other person is not chayiv for the damages. How, moreover, even if an ox that is defined as the property of an owner causes damage, and afterwards the owner consecrates it or declares it ownerless, payment is not expropriated from the body of the ox. For payment to be expropriated, it must be owned by one person at the time it causes the damage and at the time of the trial.
Sorry, I kind of spaced out by Dalet again. I'm just going to fly through it really quickly. Similarly, an ox that is ownerless and causes damage is also not held responsible for the damage it causes. Okay, that makes sense. It's an ownerless wild ox, right? Because it's not one that belongs to someone. So if it goes, this ownerless ox gores another ox, and before the person whose property was damaged takes possession of the goring ox, another person does so, that other person, it's not liable for the damages. Moreover, even if an ox that is defined as the property of an owner causes damage, and afterwards the owner consecrates it or declares the ownerless payment does not expropriate from the body of the ox. The payment to be expropriated must be owned by one person at the time it caused the damage and at the time of the trial. So it's funny, like you could really figure out the loopholes over here based on what the strict rules are. Okay, when an ox, whether a tum or a muad belonging to a Jew gores an ox belonging to a Gentile, the Jew is not liable. Wow. The rationale is that the Gentiles do not hold a person responsible for damage caused by his livestock. Now, this is argued upon by the Ravid, so this is the Rambam's law. This is the way that the Rambam sees the law, but the Ravid differs with the reason stated by the Rambam and objects because the Gentiles seize animals in lieu of payment for damage that they cause. In other words, the Torah law says we have specific fines, a specific penalty system worked out if my ox causes damage, let's say, to another person's ox. But when it comes to this situation, the Rambam is just saying the Gentiles don't have this law. But the Ravid says, yeah, but the law that they do have is that they just take away the animal. It's like, oh, your animal caused damage, now I own your animal. So the Ravid maintains that by speaking of a colleague's ox, the Torah excludes one belonging to a Gentile. The Torah and the Shulchan Aruch quote the Rambam's the Torah and the Shulchan Aruch quote the Rambam's ruling. Very interesting. So therefore, we judge this case by their laws. Whatever the laws of the Gentiles are, of course, it's one of the 7 laws of Noah, that God wants all the nations to have a just court system. And in this case, the Jewish person would be obligated to use the court system, not of the Jewish people, but rather of the Gentile who he caused damage to. Therefore, we judge this case according to the laws. One, by contrast, an ox, whether a tam or a muad belonging to a Gentile gores an ox belonging to a Jew, the Gentile must pay the entire amount of damages. And this is a penalty imposed upon the Gentiles because they are not careful about the observance of the mitzvahs. It would appear that that means the Sheva mitzvahs, and one of them is the law obligating societies to set up a system of civil law. And we need to do a better job right now, l'chaim, for me and you, Benny, and for all of us, in influencing the nations around us to do this. And they do not remove factors that can cause damage. So basically, the penalty that they receive is like they'll have to pay the full amount. If we will not hold them liable for the damage caused by their animals, they're not going to guard them, and the animals will destroy other people's property. So the Jewish people need to stick up for themselves in this case. Vav, when an ox that is tam causes damage and then is sold by its owner before the trial takes place, the person whose property was damaged may collect his due from it despite the fact that it was sold. So before we said if it was consecrated or if it was made ownerless, if the guy goes ahead and sells it, I guess maybe to try and get rid of his obligation to pay up, the person who's owed money can go and collect his due from it before it is transferred to the purchaser. And afterward, the purchaser should collect that sum from the previous owner who sold it to him and say, hey, bro, you sold me something that had basically had a lien on it. The rationale for this ruling is that once an ox is gored, the matter becomes known, and the purchaser should not have purchased the animal until the one whose property was damaged had collected his due. So he does have a complaint and he could get paid back, but he's going to have to deal with that. Zion.
If the owner of an ox that caused damage consecrates the ox, it is consecrated. This law was instituted so that people will not say, an animal that was consecrated can lose its status without being redeemed. The owner slaughters the ox, the person whose property was damaged may collect his due from the meat. If the owner gives it away as a present, the present is binding. If the person whose property was damaged may collect his due from the animal.
Ches. Thank you.
If an ox caused damage, there was a trial. And afterwards the owner sold it. The sale is of no consequence. If he consecrates it, it is not consecrated, and if he gave it away as a present, the present is of no consequence. If the creditors of the owner of the ox seize it first to collect their due from it, they are not entitled to retain possession. So the person whose property was damaged collects his due from it. This applies whether the debt was undertaken before the damage was done or afterward. Rationale is that even if it belonged to the creditors at the outset and caused damage, the person whose property was damaged would be entitled to collect his due.
I don't understand why what would be wrong with the creditors coming to collect what's due them.
Because the guy whose property was damaged gets first dibs.
That's who we mean by the... Oh, we're talking about different creditors?
Yeah.
Ah. God, I thought that the creditors meant the guy whose property was damaged.
From what I understand.
Right, and it's interesting. Yeah. The end of the halacha makes that clear, that this applies whether the debt was undertaken before the damage was done or after. Wow. Okay, the following rules apply when an ox that is muad causes damage, regardless of whether the trial took place already or not. If the owner has consecrated it, sold it, given it as a present, or slaughtered it, his deed is binding. Wait, so all of that was about a tum specifically? Why are we changing it now on a... Yeah, I guess the past 3 halachos were about a tum. And now, for some reason, an animal which is prone to damage, actually you could go ahead and sell it or give it away as a present or shecht it even after trial. I don't know why. If the creditors of the owner lead the ox away before the person whose property was damaged takes possession of it, they acquire it. The creditors now receive it. This applies whether the debt owed them was made before the damage took place or afterwards. Why? Okay, I'm very intrigued. The reason is, the person whose property was damaged is entitled to collect his due from the choicest property belonging to the owner. All of the owner's property is on lien because of the damage caused. Wait, so I don't get it. Let me read this footnote here. This explains the fundamental difference between damage caused by a tum, which again, I see more people joined us. So I'll reiterate, a tum is an animal that's not prone to this type of damage, and a muad is an animal that is and was already warned on 3 separate occasions. When a tum causes damage, its own body is on lien for the damage. The damage is not considered to be a debt owed by the owner of the ox. When in contrast a muad causes damage, the opposite is true. The person whose property was damaged has no claim to the ox itself. His claim is borne by all the holdings of its owner. Wow, so you would think that it should be more strict, but in a weird way, it comes out that the owner has more of a loophole because he's the guy who's responsible. It's not the responsibility of the ox. Well, the other case, it's not a responsibility of the ox, but the point is, it's like a chefza gavra situation. And in the other case, it's upon the debt can be collected, or the damages can be collected from the body of the ox. Whereas in this case, it's just this dude who is the owner of this damaging ox that is required to fix the situation. Yod. Benny.
Whose turn is it?
Your turn.
When a court is required to expropriate property belonging to a person who causes damages, for the person whose property was damaged, the movable property of the person who caused the damage should be expropriated first. If he does not own any movable property, or the property he owns is not sufficient to pay for all the damages, the remainder should be expropriated from the choicest properties he owns. As long as movable property is found, even property of inferior quality landed property should not be expropriated.
Did you follow what you just said?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me to reiterate.
That would be great.
Okay. When a person's property has to be taken because he caused damage to someone else's property, to pay back, he has to pay with his movable property first. If he doesn't own any movable property, then you take the choicest of his land.
Is that what has to happen, or that's what we're saying? Like, because it's much better for a person to give away items that he owns than land that he owns. So are we saying that this is what has to happen, or this is like just better for him?
But I don't think the halacha is meant to take everything away from the guy.
No, we're not. We're just trying to pay up his debt.
Right. So we're saying try to pay off the debt with movable.
With metaltalin.
Correct. Even if he has the most basic movable property that's very cheap, he should give it away. He should sell it to pay off the debt before paying back with his own land. The last part is that even
it's better to take away metaltalin than even very cheap land. So he might be saying, like, I don't care about this plot of land. I care more about my cell phone. And we still will tell him, we're taking away your cell phone.
Correct.
Okay, Yud Aleph.
If the person who caused the damage dies before he pays, the court does not expropriate the movable property, the metaltalin, belonging to his heirs. Instead, they expropriate the landed property in the estate, taking out that of the least value. The rationale is that the person whose property was damaged becomes one of the creditors of the person who caused the damage, and movable property is never considered to be on lien to a creditor. If the person whose property was damaged seized movable property, possession of movable property belonging to the person who caused the damage in the latter's lifetime when he was still alive, payment for the damages must be collected from this movable property after his death.
Yeah. The last part, if the person's property was damaged, seized possession of movable property belonging to the person who caused the damage, in the latter's lifetime, payment for the damages may be collected from this movable property. Okay. So they can just go ahead and take it. I'm getting a phone call. Let me just reject it. Let me go ahead and not take it. Okay, Yud Beis, the Ga'onim have already ordained that a debt owed a creditor can be expropriated from the movable property in the estate. In other words, even though it's not considered, movable property is not considered on lien to a creditor, and we would not take it away from his inheritors after he passes, the Ga'onim have ruled that we do. I just lost my place. Give me a second.
Good base.
Thank you. This ruling has been accepted by all the Jewish courts of law. Therefore, damages may also be expropriated from movable property left to heirs. So we apply that here as well. It's not just a regular debt, but it's damages that this person who had passed caused and is responsible for. If the deceased did not leave any movable property, then the creditor can expropriate the landed property of least value. For as explained in the previous law, whenever a person seeks to expropriate property from heirs, he is given the property of the least value. We're not going to say you can go take this plot of land or this house or whatever, which is very nice. We say you can expropriate real estate, but it's got to be starting from the least valuable. Yud Gimel, damages should not be collected, nor is an atonement fine imposed, nor is an animal executed. None of these things happen unless definite proof is brought as substantiated by acceptable witnesses. We don't say that since only shepherds, servants, and the like are found in the stables of horses, the stalls of cattle, and the corrals of sheep, their testimony should be accepted if they testify that one animal damaged another. Similarly, if ktanim or nashim, who are not acceptable witnesses, testify that one person injured another or caused another type of damage, one might think that we can rely on them. This is not so. Instead, financial redress is required because of the testimony of witnesses only when the witnesses are acceptable and fit to testify with regard to anything else. And they give testimony, not anything else. The point is on other matters in general, because there are situations when usually unacceptable witnesses would be acceptable. But this is not one of them. So they need to be normally acceptable witnesses, and they give testimony, and then on that basis, the court obligates the one who caused the damages to pay. Yud Daled, which is the final law of this chapter, and we complete today's Rambam, which is extremely amazing to learn because it's Torah, but especially because we learn it together with so many other Jewish people today who all together unite in studying all of the Torah every single year as per the Rebbe's directive to do this. So we're connecting to the Rebbe. When an ox was pasturing at the edge...
This learning session in memory of Rabbi Kogan.
Yeah, I was talking about that on the stream before calling you. Yesterday, after I finished learning Chassidus, with my chavrusa, there was a guy who was giving a shiur, and it's actually on the live stream from yesterday, and he was saying how, he started to say Le'ilei Nishmas, but he's like, what more of an aliyah of a neshama can a neshama have other than like after it was just killed, al kiddush Hashem. Like literally, this person gave his life away, even while he was a soul within a body, for the sake of Hashem, and then his soul was forced out of his body by brutal terrorists. Like, what kind of aliyah neshama can we affect? So he was like, it should be le'ilei our neshama. In his merit, we should grow and we should be elevated through this Torah learning. But yeah, very, very important, Benny. Thank you. When an ox was pasturing at the edge of a river and another ox is found dead near him, even though the dead ox was gored, and the ox that's alive was prone to gore, so we have every reason to believe that this ox did that, or the dead ox was bitten and this ox was prone to bite, we don't say that we can be certain that this one bit it or this gored it, even if one of a group of camels is known to bite, and another camel is found dead at its side. We don't say that it's certain that this one killed it, unless the matter was observed by acceptable witnesses. In this, as in many other instances, the Rambam emphasizes that circumstantial evidence, no matter how indisputable, is not sufficient. According to Torah law, a claim can be established only through the testimony of witnesses. Right? So there's a certain standard that the Torah has, that this is considered evidence, this is not considered evidence. And it's not necessarily what we might think is empirical or just objectively true and valid evidence. It's not how it works. All right, Yashir Kayach Binyamin. Now can I show everybody who they've been learning with?
Sure.
All right. How you doing otherwise?
Hashem.
Oh, is that a watch in your hand?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I saw your wrists before from the camera. It looked like you were handling a watch. I was curious. It looks good. It looks nice.
Thank you. My papa gave it to me.
Mm-hmm.
Someone gave it to me as a gift, and he thought I would enjoy it.
Let me see. Hold it closer to the camera.
One second.
I should be making more watch content. As per my... I actually like that. I really like... I don't know if a lot of... Well, you're holding it upside down. But I don't know if a lot of people agree with me. Because I don't see that they're selling all the time. Like, people aren't calling me and asking me. But I love Arabic numerals. Like, I love... A lot of watches are stick dial or diamond dial. Like, there's all sorts. There's ones without any... indication. I really like these. Anyhow, okay.
Are we still live, or
we are still live. I think I'm gonna end it. I'm trying to. Oh man, I had a chavrusa today an hour ago. Shoot. Maybe he thought I was still out of town. But oy. You're coming. When are you coming into town? Thursday. Okay. All right. So I'll see you on Mr. Hashem.
See you tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. Oh well, tomorrow over FaceTime. Yeah. Do you need the watch adjusted, or it fits you?
It needs adjusting.
So if for whatever reason you don't have it adjusted by Thursday, you're welcome to bring it to me. But maybe come already rocking it.
I wear it. It fits on my wrist a little bit.
It's like a little blingy. Okay, some people like wearing their watch like that. Thank you for reminding me. I haven't worn my watch in days, by the way.
No, I feel like if it's adjusted, it'll be too small.
That could be. I once adjusted one of my watches, and then I regretted it, and then I just put it aside and never picked it up again. Actually, well, I wore it tight, but then ever since I decided to put it down, I didn't pick it up again. And yeah.
Oh shit. Yeah, I just broke it.
No. I don't think so. Hang on to it because I probably have the tools for you. It's not broken. Like,
My father knows a guy who has like a kiosk, a jewelry kiosk where he works.
like a pawn shop?
The guy wants to charge him like $60, $80.
Wait, $1,680 to
No, wants to charge him either between $60 to $80 to fix it.
Okay, well, I mean, that sounds like a fair price. It really depends on the watch, but that sounds like a low price, honestly.
But I just broke the piece. I don't know if it's broken or
So,
whatever, but I just like.
I mean, if you're bringing it to someone else, then do that. But otherwise, so bring it on Thursday. I'll see if I can fix it for you.
Okay, thank you.
Love you.
1 second, we're still live?
Yes.
Okay, well, you know.
Do you want me to end? Why? Do you want to tell me some private stuff? Because I'll end it right now.
That's exactly the point.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. And ending. It takes a few seconds.